Okay, I think we are up and running.
Wonderful.
Okay, so you can see it's still light outside, but we have our time that we're going to do our story and then Havdalah and wait for a few more people to join us. So
Yeah.
we have about 10 minutes that we're up here before we actually get started.
Yeah.
Story and Havdalah.
I was busy doing something. I said, well, if I come into the room with, to set up for this, I can do something while I'm waiting for it to start. Otherwise, I almost forgot. I said, oh my God, what time is it?
Yeah, Maya's decided to lie down right near my feet tonight.
Yeah.
And it's not even fireworks outside, so she just wants to be nearby.
Yeah, well, I figure they may start after it gets dark again.
Yeah, I didn't hear them last night, but I guess I mustn't have been outside with her.
Yeah.
But we had 2 adult deer and 2 baby deer who came through the back this afternoon.
Oh.
I've only seen the baby deer that was born behind us once since then. So I saw 2 was still with all their spots and then the 2 big ones.
Okay, maybe I have too much light coming in from the window.
And it rained earlier and now it seems nice for the time being. So
yeah. I had to run out. I needed to get dog food. And then I went and got carrots for him and got really annoyed at the supermarket because too many people who were working there weren't wearing their masks correctly. And
Really?
It got me very angry. Told them I may never be back because you're not wearing your masks.
Yeah.
And I told them exactly why. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Hello.
I liked your articles
about Shalom for a little bit longer.
in the Reporter.
Thank you. I just actually posted it on Facebook because I know some people who are on Facebook. So.
I can't hear you very well. Can you make yourself a little louder?
Huh. Let me see.
No, when you now I could hear you better. You were
okay.
sitting back and speaking quietly,
Right.
I think.
That was so. I have some people that I know who knew Larry who are Facebook friends who don't get the paper, so I put it up on there.
The article about your brother was beautiful.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Oh, Holly, I have a question for you. Because somebody took down Sandy Shapiro's sign, that was your sign. Are those allowed to be up or do we need to take them down? They put it on the side of the garage, but I
yeah. So in the town of Union, they may take them down. You can take them down and then they have to go back up. And I'll tell you when. I think they can go back up either 60 or 90 days before the election.
Okay.
So if somebody takes it down, if someone takes it down, it's okay. I just tell people leave them up, and then if they they're not going to take them from your yard. They'll just take it down and put it down. If somebody does that, then just put it back up later.
Okay.
And that's not the same for the other jurisdictions? It's only the town of Union?
Are you in the town of Binghamton, Rabbi? Or
yes. I'm in the town of Binghamton. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check, Rabbi.
Because I don't know about the town of Shenango.
Other people's signs are still up here.
Yeah.
This is all
up here.
I say leave them up until you're told to take them down. That's what I tell people. And then if you're told to take them down, take it down.
Our conversation is live on Facebook. Just be aware we're live on Facebook right now, so our conversation will be there after this as well.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay, but so we're figuring out what the rules are.
Which is Rabbi Esterman asked me. We'll talk about it another time.
Right. Well, anybody who knows me well enough and reads my things, even though I can't say who to vote for, you can tell who it is. People can write something that, you write something with Jewish values, it's that, and I have a Brandisi sign from the last time still because somebody said given me the extra years and give it back. So,
Rachel, Rabbi Barbara's trying to tell you, everyone can. This is going to be archived. It's on Facebook, so. It's probably not to talk about.
I'm I'm speaking as an individual member of Temple Concord. I'm not representing the Federation of the Reporter here.
That's right. So we'll wait for a few more people to join us. So it ended up being a nice afternoon after a while. It cleared up a little.
Yes, it really was raining for quite a while. There's a lot of graduation ceremonies going on today. So.
That's what I understood.
They were later this afternoon.
Yeah, the Forks was last night at the stadium.
Yeah. It does concern me, I don't know if in the paper today, they were saying that, of course, religious organizations can have, or, churches, temples, mosques can have 50% capacity now. So I don't know what that means for us, but.
Well, there's a whole set of procedures to go through that you have to have the plan in place. And so you have to be able to have all those things in place before you can go anywhere further. We are nowhere there. And what the space that you have can support in being safe and all that, we still have a lot more research we're doing before we can go the next steps.
Are you going to keep services on Zoom even when you resume?
There will be Zoom, there will be virtual throughout the time because we know there are people who will not be able to come into the sanctuary and the synagogue, even if we were to have people there. So we will have to be offering whatever we do both ways. It will not be, oh, we're back in the synagogue now. Bye, everybody who's been with us online. You'll have the online option as well. Yeah.
Good. I think that's important. That's an important offering. That so many people are compromised in so many ways.
Yeah. A lot of people are starting, we were invited to some graduation parties this weekend and the coming weeks. And we just can feel like we cannot go because these young people in particular, they don't maintain social distancing when they get all together. And I don't trust that, being in a space with a lot of young people is safe. Even if I wore my mask, if they're not, or, I don't know where they've been.
And how do you go to a place where you would usually give somebody a hug and all of that when now you're not? It's very tricky to learn how to handle all of those kind of situations as well. Yeah. We always have new things to learn.
And I can really see it, having, we dropped some food off for Howie the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And he came over to me and he gave me a hug, and what was I going to do? And I think that any situation like that, if you're in the presence of somebody who's bereaved, it's
very hard.
Very difficult not to hug them. So in some senses, this Zoom thing at least lets you let the people you care, but you can keep yourself safe and you're not going to give in to your human impulse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a whole new challenging kind of thing because for people who are used to hugging, how do you not do that? Is the sound goofy?
No, you're okay.
I think it's my system going in and out though.
Well, because it sounded a little bit funny for me for a moment too. So hopefully all of our internet will cooperate throughout the course of story and of Havdalah this evening. We've become reliant on it, and sometimes technology works well for us and other times it falls short. So, okay, so I'm going to wait till 7 o'clock.
Oh. Okay.
Joining us.
So one day, if you don't wait, someone will come in. I did an adult ed once years ago where I said, "Oh, it looks like everybody's here, so let's just get started." And someone else walked in right on time and was looking. Well, I said, "Oh, my bad, sorry." So I'm never starting again until the exact time.
I try to do that with Friday nights. So sometimes I'll start a warm-up song beforehand, but I won't do more than a song just to get in the mood before the time that we've said we're starting.
I went to a synagogue years ago, actually after college, Society Hill Synagogue in Philly. And I used to get there early because they had a cantor with a beautiful voice. And he would spend the 15 minutes or so before services singing and you had covered out, you were in the mood by the time the rabbi walked out because you'd heard all this beautiful music and stuff. It really got you right where you wanted to be.
So I don't know if I may have reposted one of them. Central Synagogue has released some amazing musical performances that are part of their Shabbat services. And True Colors was one last night. They did a few weeks ago related to Black Lives Matters, Micha Mocha, to Lift Every Voice, and then sang part of Lift Every Voice, which is the Negro or Black national anthem. And there are quite a number of other ones there. There was a whole instrumental version of Sanctuary that Julie Silva wrote. So if you go to Central Synagogue in New York City, Manhattan, to their website, I'm sure you can find those recordings because they were really quite moving. So found some good things to sort of stay in the mood of Shabbat, uplifting and enriching. So in the story that I want to tell, I'm sort of going to do two in one because my version that I like the best is through Joel Lurie Gershaver, who he and Beth Hoopen put a book together called Tzedakah Gamilut Chasadim and Ahava, a manual for world repair. And so while there are some stories have many versions, I'm going to sort of work from here. So we know there are many, many stories of creation, and creation stories exist for people to try to explain how the world is as it is, not really about origin stories, but to try to do that. So we know pretty much the two creation stories in Genesis, but Lurianic Kabbalah has another, whether it's a creation myth, story of creation, sometimes attributed to Isaac Luria. It seems that the earliest written forms of it are in Sefer Yetzirah, but the elements are that when God is going to create the world, in the beginning there was only God. And so God was in all space, and God's light filled all that was. So to be able, for God's own reasons, to create the rest of the world and to create everything, God had to pull back and give space for creation to take place. And so this idea of God pulling back God's self is called tzimtzum. And in doing that, there's room then in that space is where creation took place, the heavens and the earth, everything that was formed. And in that space, you have this first part, but what's not there yet is God's divine light, because God cleared out that space to create. So in the phase 2 part of creation, God then decides he's going to let sparks into this area. And the process, it's almost like after you exhale, you inhale. You exhale after inhaling. So it's like breathing the light into the world. And to be able to do that, the sparks of God had to be able to be held in something. So there were these vessels that the sparks of God were in to be throughout the whole world. So as God infuses the world with light in these vessels, something goes wrong, and the vessels can't hold all of it, and so it explodes. So throughout the world, there are these bits of light, of God's light, which we often call nitzotzot, the sparks of God's light, and then there are all these broken pieces of these vessels. And so the shattering of the vessels leaves this mess for us to work to clean up. So the challenge and the work of repairing the world is sorting out and separating out these sparks of God's light from the vessels, from those broken pieces. And that's really the core part of the concept of tikkun olam, which we often talk about repairing the world. And so I wanted to give that as the backdrop, or the first story for tonight, for my story about this cool guy, this little guy and this is a midrashic story, many versions. It seems to be attributed to Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, but it seems that there are quite a number of versions attributed to many different people. So I can't say where it starts from, but there lived a man who was known as the fixer. And he fixed things. He could fix anything and everything. He could make things that were broken work again. And that's what he did. And he would fix something and he'd get a few coins for it here and a few coins for it there. And after he had enough, a few coins for the day, he would stop and he would go and he would get a moist little, some more cake morsels, not a whole cake, just a little bit. And he'd get a glass of beer and he'd have his own little feast. And Rabbi Nachman of Wroclaw would say that his little feast was always a feastalah, and the life went on. And so he was very happy and in his own way, fixing things along the way. So the same land where this man lived, there was a wicked king. And all wicked kings have one thing in common. If everyone in the kingdom is miserable, then a totally wicked king can be ecstatic. And if anybody isn't miserable, the king is miserable. So this totally wicked king in our story goes wandering around his whole country incognito, in costume, and listens to everybody moaning and groaning and feels very good about it. And one day as he's wandering around the kingdom, right before his eyes, he sees this little man sitting at a broken table on a broken chair in front of a pretty disheveled, broken down house. And he has this morsel of cake and he's drinking from a tin mug of beer and he's singing along and having a wonderful time. And the king asks, but he doesn't know it's the king, right? Who are you? And the man said, don't you know me? I'm a fixer. And the king was furious. So he ran back to the castle, got out of his costume and all that, and figured this guy can't be happy, so I'll fix it. And he made a new law. No more fixing things. If something is broken, it has to stay broken. So the fixer doesn't know what to do and has to figure out he only has enough of coins from each day to get his morsel of cake and his little bit of beer. And remember, they didn't drink water then because water was contaminated. So beer would be what you would drink for your liquid. So the king expects the next day to go down to that broken shack on the hill and to see this man miserable. And instead, he's not. And he gets there and he sees him on that broken chair at the broken table in front of the broken house with this morsel of cake, his little tin of beer, and singing and humming and having his little feastalah. So out of breath, the king asked the fixer, how can you be happy when the kingdom is ruled by a totally wicked king who's just made having things fixed illegal? And the fixer answered, boy, the king has his own problems. As for me today, I got a job sweeping floors. With the money I earned from sweeping floors, I got my morsel of cake, my little tin of beer, and I'm very happy making my own little feastalah. So the king was furious, and of course, he outlawed and said, no more sweeping floors. If a floor is dirty, it just has to stay dirty. So over the next few days, the song and the feasting kept coming from that broken down little house with the table and the chair. And so over the course of the next few days, as this fixer, when he can't do one thing, thinks about, prays to God, what should he do, and comes up with other things to do. So over the course of the next few days, it became illegal to paint things. It became illegal to draw water, to unload things, and even to gather firewood. So everyone in the kingdom was miserable. So the king was happy and he decided he'd take a stroll through the kingdom again. So he gets out to the fixer's house. And as you might guess, when he comes over there and he sees the broken down house and the broken table and the broken chair, there is the fixer eating his cake and drinking his tin cup of beer and singing and having his whole little feastola. So the king said, how can you possibly be happy? He said, it's impossible. The king's made it impossible to sweep, to draw water, to paint, to gather firewood, and anything to do to earn money. So how can you celebrate? And the fixer said, I'm alive. And I celebrate because today I did something the king can't make illegal. I joined the army. The king can't ban the army. Without it, he wouldn't be king. I joined the army on a daily basis, and I turned my pay into a feastola. So you know what the king did. He returned to the palace, and he indeed said, you can't join on a daily basis. You will only get paid once a month. And a daily basis of pay is now illegal. He couldn't have made anyone enlisted for longer than a month, so that was the period. So on his next visit, the king learned that the fixer had enlisted in the army on a monthly basis. He said, I'm never going to hurt anyone, he claimed. And so he went to a pawn shop and he got a loan on the silver sword. And that loan was good enough for 30 feastolas, so he could have his cake and his beer each day during the month. And then he figured, you know, he was a fixer, right? So he made a wooden sword and put it in the handle. And when you have it in the holder, the only thing you can see is the handle. And so he figured he would use that while he stood guard. So the king, when he learned of this, spent all night plotting on what to do. So when morning came, he summoned all of his soldiers and all of the townspeople and everyone else into the square, and he brought forth a prisoner, and he announced that he was going to pick one of his soldiers to behead the prisoner. And he had to do it with his sword. And after walking the long lines of the troops, you know, he picked the fixer to behead the prisoner. And the fixer said, has the man had a trial? No, the king answered. So how do we know he's guilty? The king didn't answer. He just said, either you behead the prisoner or you will be beheaded. So the fixer stepped out of line, shouted to the thousands standing in the square, and he said, you all know me. I'm the fixer. I fix things. The king wants me to behead this man, but I don't believe that he's guilty. I say we let God be the judge. Everyone knows that a soldier's sword is made out of silver. If mine is silver, I will behead the prisoner. But if God makes a miracle and changes my sword into wood, God wants the man to go free. So soon the king was running from the square, screaming in anger, and soon the townspeople were celebrating. And soon the fixer was back on his broken down chair in front of his broken down house and his broken table with his morsel of cake and drinking his tin of beer. Sometimes he fixed things, but daily he sang and he celebrated. And we all know what Reb Nachman said, taught that indeed his feastola was indeed a feastola. So I share this story with you, and there are other versions of it where you get a little more insight about the fixer each day thinking about what am I going to do, and going and finding people who need work done who they can't find anyone to do it, and then it becomes outlawed. So the outlaw part is the same, but it's one of my favorite stories because it's all about tikkun olam and about fixing. And okay, Rachel?
Well, it's just fun because I've got two stories, half of in a book that I have, half of which talks about a king outlawing things and a man being happy because he figures out ways around it. And another one about a man that ends up with pulling the sword, the same thing, he ends up having to to pawn his sword, and
Mhm.
the thing, if I pull it out and it's wood, then God has said this thing is innocent. But it's funny because it's the parts of it are divided into two different parts and two different stories. So I was listening to one thing, and yes, 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 and then all of a sudden you do the other part. Wait, that's a different story, but it works. So that's together.
So one of the other versions that is on the URJ website, it's a little boy who stole an apple in the marketplace who's brought in front of the king, who they say he has to kill. And so all the people are so relieved when it's a wooden sword and the child isn't put to death. But this one, it's a prisoner, and it's, we can always add other pieces in, but right. So fixing and everything being taken away, and yet continuing to find a way to live life, to celebrate each day, and to do what he could, including saving somebody else's life in the end by having the wooden sword rather than the other. So I think it's a great story. It's sometimes called the wooden sword, sometimes it's called the fixer, but there are many versions of it, and it is a Jewish tale that goes back a long way, I believe. I wonder if there aren't other pieces of it that may be in other groups and other traditions as well, because it seems the kind of story that probably is around in many different ways. But there clearly is our Jewish roots to it, and the versions I have heard are from that realm. So with that, we are going to continue with Havdalah. I'll move things in front of me. And we are not going to meet next week because of 4th of July, but we'll be back after that again. So we will take 1 week off. But of course, you can all make Havdalah on your own at whatever time you want to. You can actually make Havdalah from Saturday night all the way through Tuesday. So you can end Shabbat anywhere along there, but it's still Shabbat until you make the ceremony, is what they say. So. Let's see. Okay, and I am going to mute you for now, and then we will unmute later. So we'll sing with me, but then we'll sing Shavua Tov together unmuted. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh Yalai la 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 Yalai la 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 Yalai la 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 Yalai la 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 Lai lai la 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 lai Yalai la 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 lai Yalai la 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 Yalai la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamavdil bein kodesh l'chol beino l'choshech bein yom hashvi'i l'sheshet yamei hamaseh Baruch atah Adonai Hamavdil bein kodesh l'chol. So as we thank God for the separating of light from darkness, the 6 days of the week from the 7th day of rest, and we are preparing to end, we prepare to take a sip from our wine or juice. And ask for God to give us the understanding to reject the unholy and choose the way of holiness. May God, who separates the holy from the profane, inspire us to perform these acts of Havdalah as we now put the candle out in our wine or juice. We'll first sing Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hakiladi. Bimera b'yameinu yavo eleinu. Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hakiladi. I invite you to unmute so we can sing Shavua Tov together. Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, a good week, a week of peace, may gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace, may gladness reign and joy increase. So I wish everyone a Shavua Tov and have a good week. And Friday night, we'll be doing things for 4th of July weekend. So we'll be doing some different, more patriotic kinds of things for the 4th of July in the service. I've used the service before. Whether I'll just be displaying the service or whether we'll be doing it in PowerPoint form, I'm not sure yet. But Jason and I are going to be working on it. And I'll also try to keep it, the service a little bit shorter for the holiday weekend to have us be able to have time for all the other things happening after that as well. So I'm going